Eric, listen carefully. You've been calling me names. You've been calling me a liar. You've been calling me a criminal. You've been saying I broke some kind of laws and I violated the IRS laws, and you're justified in keeping all this stuff because I'm a bad guy. I have different people who've talked to, who were down there talking to you and said that you regularly, and well, you and others in the family regularly have to downplay dad and make me look like a criminal in order to justify what you are doing. Son, stop. Just stop, okay? Let's get right with God. Should you desire to make all this right from your end and return all the stuff, CSE will help God Quest get started the right way. We want to help. I don't want any control of your ministry. I don't want any control of you. I just want to help you make it. You could run your ministry as you please. Now, with some proud enemies, it is essential that the victor demand unconditional surrender. If you study history, I love studying history. I've read thousands of history, especially on battles and wars. In the Civil War, the generals of the North knew we have to demand unconditional surrender. These are proud bunch of rebels down there. It's got to be unconditional. Now, when it was, the North was very gracious and very helpful and did all kinds of things to help them. But they had to break that stupid pride first. Same thing happened with the Japanese and the Germans. The Germans were really proud and fought ferociously. But when the Russians came in and they thought, oh no, we better surrender to the Americans. We don't want to surrender to the Russians. No offense to you Russians here, but they knew they can be pretty mean. Right? The Japanese, it took 2 atomic bombs to get them to surrender. So, okay. I've done my duty as father, as mentor, as man of God to warn you in every way I know. You've hardened your heart and you've closed your ears. You're harming the ministry, your ministry. You're harming our relationship. You're taking your children's grandfather away from them and giving the enemies of Christ occasion to blaspheme the name of Christ. This worries me and grieves me. I fear God will step in one day. In 2018, I made just a few slides to show the folks what really happened, the history, and then we'll quit here. There were quite a few things that CSE had that we asked you to hold for us, and you did, and then stole them. Can you hear me now? If I regard iniquity in my heart, the Lord will not hear me. I did not mention our strife or bring it up to others and ask questions, but you have now threatened me with police action. You called the police on me to get me kicked out of my own house. Last time I was down there a couple of months ago, you said, I'm calling the sheriff on you right now. I said, Eric, you've got to be kidding. I'm your dad. What? I did nothing wrong. Didn't threaten anybody. Didn't threaten. Okay. So it's time to defend CSE publicly. Abram said in Genesis 13, let there be no strife. We be brethren. So to prevent anyone from muddying the waters, let's keep two things separate. There are the assets that the government did seize. They only had permission to seize real estate. You raised the funds with my mailing list to get it back for me, and instead put that into the name of CSE, and you're collecting rent on it, and you have ever since. There's also some assets the government did not seize. My pocket knife, my underwear, my socks, the forklift, the motorhome, all the Ica stones that I paid $1,500 each for. I would like those back, son. And I'm not going to have you piecemeal this thing to me. We want unconditional surrender. We want it all back. Then we'll decide what you need to run your ministry. You claim you own all that now. Here's the summary. On my birthday, January 15th, I asked my brother Ross in Groveland, Illinois, if he'd like to come down for a paid vacation to Lenox to help me organize my shop. He's an incredible handyman, knows how to do everything. He said, it's over for me to help you unless you make a public apology to Joe and Eric. They supported you during your prison term and you slammed them on Facebook. Don't text me until you have done this. I said, Ross, I responded that, Ross, you don't know all the facts. And he's a referee, taught school 35 years and retired. Now he referees games, grade school and junior high. A referee hears all the sides and maybe even reviews the play before making a call. I said, you made a call and you need to review this play. You didn't know all the sides, okay? But he still has not responded nor come down to visit. I told him that I was still supporting my ex-wife, Jo, to the tune of several $1,000s a month, and that Eric's board had looked at the issues involving dividing us and said, yep, he should return it. See, by Eric keeping all the rent from 10 houses at $700 a month, that's a lot of money. And that's what supports my ex-wife. If indeed he returns everything, I don't have any legal obligation at all, but I promise you, I will take care of her. I made a promise. She broke the promise and left me. She divorced me. You can't stop a divorce in Florida. Took 6 minutes in divorce court. 6 minutes. We went in there. Judge said, "You want this divorce?" "Yes, sir." "Okay." Divorce granted. Walked out. On the way out, I said, "Joe, would you marry me?" She said, "You got to be kidding." But even in spite of the way she treated me, I will support her till she dies, if I can. If I get all the stuff back, Eric. So you haven't done any of those things your board told you to. My brother said, "I checked with Joe and Eric, and they said you're not sending them any money. Deferring business to them does not count. How much money are you sending them? You told me thousands." I invited Ross to call so I could explain, but he's not called yet. Ross, call me, okay, please. I'm your brother, the one you helped bring to Christ. Eric and Joe insisted that I make a public apology on YouTube before they have anything to do with me. Apologize for what? They have my phone blocked. I can't call them. I try to send texts and it gets returned. Okay. I've been in Lenox, just 70 miles away, for nearly 5 years now. They've never visited one time. I've invited them scores of times. That includes my own grandchildren. So since my son Eric, my ex-wife Joe, and my brother Ross have insisted that I did the wrong and that I must apologize publicly on YouTube before any restitution can take place, I'm reluctantly going to make a record of what really happened. I agree a great wrong was done and an apology is needed. But it's Eric that did the wrong, not Dad. How many saw the movie The Fugitive? Harrison Ford was totally innocent, and Dr. Nichols, the guy who had changed the records and was really the bad guy, he acted so sweet and concerned and innocent until he was confronted in this scene. Then his real character came out, and he tried to kill the innocent man. Harrison Ford, you're the man. And Eric, you're the man who did the wrong here. In the movie The Witness, Harrison Ford did the same thing. Remember the Amish there murdered the guy in the bathroom, and the Amish kid saw it. And he had acted so sweet, the bad guy had, until he was confronted in this scene. When the colonies in America tried to secede from England, they made a declaration spelling out why. King, you did this wrong and this wrong and this wrong. They made a list of all the things he did wrong. King George, you're the man to blame for this. And he was. So I likewise will spell out clearly what the history of the conflict, what happened, and the simple solution. I returned home July 8, 2015. Now, someone recorded a phone call with me without my knowledge or consent and posted it on YouTube. I asked him to take it down, and he did, but scores of others copied it, and it persists to this day. By the way, people who know said my son records every phone call he gets without telling people, and that is illegal. In Florida, 2 people have to consent. You have to tell them, I'm recording you, Eric. You could go to prison for that. You record every phone call you get. We know. Now stop, okay? I didn't say anything wrong. That's not true, but the real issue is the fact that I exposed Eric, that he, anyway. So let me get up to what happened here. Biblical, defend yourself. Abimelech, people did nothing wrong. You can look up all these verses for yourself. Here's what happened. Pashur, lots of cases in the Bible. Okay, the slaves did no wrong. The Jews did no wrong. Here is a map of the property. Our ministry was at 29 Cummings Road. We moved in there and slowly bought up houses in the neighborhood. We bought the blue ones. All these properties belonged to the ministry, and the government seized them. Eric paid the $430,000 ransom and got them back, but put them into his name. Now, the yellow properties we also bought. The government did not seize because they were not quite paid off yet. We still owed a few $1,000s buying them from the neighbor. The lady lived right here, so we bought the houses off of her. We're making payments. Eric collected money with my mailing list, paid off the last few thousand, and put them all in his name. I think that's theft, son. I trusted you to manage things, okay? This is where 29 Cummings Road was and the properties adjoining, the museum and science center, all sitting there still full of my stuff, the ministry stuff. Nobody gets to use it or see it. So November 2nd, I lost in court, was taken to prison. This gave me a 10-year sentence. November 8th, 6 days later, the trustee, Glenn Stoll, had Eric and I both sign a resignation letter. Eric, here's your resignation letter. You resigned as manager or had no authority whatsoever to do anything for CSE after 6 days of me being in jail. There it is right there. November 8th, Eric Hovind signed it. You had no authority to sell the property. We just talked to Paul. He didn't give you authority to sell any property of CSE, but you did anyway. Over the next 9 years, I was moved 32 times, and my wife Jo was sent to prison for 9 months. She also broke no laws. During that time, the government seized the properties and the bank account. John David Roy Atchison, the U.S. attorney who seized the bank account, went down to have sex with a 5-year-old in Michigan and got arrested and hung himself in jail. Google John David Roy Atchison. That's the unit attorney, put me in prison. Eric, without authority or permission, transferred all other property into the name of his new ministry, GodQuest. He says that included my clothes, my tools, my furniture. So there's CSE in Pensacola. The Science Center still full of stuff. Right there, there's the Science Center, 3 stories of cool stuff, the Flingosaurus, and the dinosaur head coming out of the building that someone made for CSE, not for you, Eric. It's still hanging there. You ought to give all that stuff up. But again, we're ready. We're done playing. We want unconditional surrender. Want it all back, okay? Then we'll talk. We paid $20,000 to build and furnish this building. It all needs to come back. The bookstore and warehouse and inventory was worth a fortune. We had video equipment, cameras, all kinds of stuff. We had 180 VCRs. Push one button to make 180 copies. Now it's all obsolete, but that's how we did it, Steve. Can you imagine that? There was quite a wiring system behind that thing. Okay. Office equipment, desks, chairs, they're still using it today. Still have it all. 14 years later. All the tables, the motorhome. Someone gave us the motorhome. Eric, I heard, sold it for $35,000. Who gave you authority to sell that, son? It belonged to CSE. Do we need to go to court and do this? I don't want to do that. But you'll go to jail if this happens, if this goes to court. The forklift. Eric, I bought that forklift when you were like 10 years old. Paid $10,000 for it. There's the white trailer that I bought when you were like 10 years old up in Arkansas. You stole it, son. You changed the title and put it in your ministry's name. Who gave you authority to do that? There's the forklift. We had a tandem how many times have we needed a hydraulic dump trailer here to dump dirt? How many loads have you taken back and forth in the tractor from the?
I just kind of zoned out and lose count.
You zone out. Hundreds. That's our trailer, son. Return it. Whether we need it or not doesn't matter. The fact is it's stolen. Our shop was full of tools, all kinds of stuff like we have now. God provides. We had a fabulous shop and all, electrical tools, plumbing tools, all that stuff. Eric stole it all of it. A few things he did let me take back. He was real generous for one day. Okay, Dad, you can go ahead and take these few tools. And then he climbed up again. Nope, can't have any more. No, son, we want it all of it. Then we'll talk about what you need. Anyway, we can go on for days and days about all the stuff. There was probably about $2 million worth of assets, the properties, the bank account, the motorhome, the forklift, all the tools disappeared. The government did not seize this house on Oleander Street. We'd been buying it from Mrs. Bowen next door. We still owed a few $1,000s on it. We completely remodeled the house and put in a nice newer trailer up front. We spent a fortune. Eric just put them all in his name. This one, this one, this one, this one, this one. And he's still collecting rent today. $7,000 a month on property the government did not seize. How do you justify that? Okay, so there's the sequence of events, what happened. I was released July 8th, 2015, after serving almost 9 years of prison. I came home to hear that if I stay at 29 Cummings, I must behave and sleep in a different room from my wife of 42 years. I did that reluctantly for 9 more months. Okay. I repeatedly asked for the CSE assets to be returned, but you refused. December of 2015, I'd only been home for a couple of months. Your board voted that you have to return everything. You didn't do it. Instead, you found some lawyer to say, no, you don't need to do that. And so you didn't. Spring of 2016, Joe divorced me and Eric filed suit to evict me from my own house that I bought when he was 8 years old or 9 years old. Today, February 24th, when I made this note, I stopped to visit Eric and he called the police to have me removed from the property. Didn't you, son? I think your donors need to know that, who you really are, okay? CSE did not have any of the items that we loaned you to start. We started with nothing in 1990. I had to go buy my own forklift. I had to go buy my own, screwdrivers. I had to go buy my own VCRs. In November 8, you had no authority to do anything. All we want is the items back that we trusted you with. We do not want any of the items you have produced since then. The movies you've made, the videos you've made, the books you've written, we don't want any of that. You got to use my typewriter, the CSE typewriter, to type that stuff up. Fine, no problem. Thank you for keep serving the Lord. Now return it. Am I out of line here? If anybody here has anything to sees anything I'm doing wrong, I don't get it. I've wrestled with this for 5 years. I don't want to make this video. I was hoping he'd get right and this wouldn't have to go public. The phone number, that phone number right there is on millions of videotapes today and DVDs worldwide. People all over the world are calling him today from this phone number on a video that they saw, thinking they're getting me. And so he sells them his stuff. I think that's immoral to get customers that way, son. Go get your own customers the right way. I want that phone number back. Then we can talk about if they call that phone number and say, is this Eric Hovind? We say, oh, no, here, we'll give you his number. We will transfer it to you. That's fair, I think. Millions of those DVDs still circle the globe in 42 languages. And that's my material, Eric, not yours. I had to fight him to get him to quit selling my stuff after I was home, because this was his income. A large percentage of the calls to GodQuest are really intended for CSE and me. The properties you purchased back from the government, like 29 Cummings and 400 Cummings, that needs to go to CSE, Eric. The 3 properties they did not seize, you need to put that back. The 5 monthly rents you get from them needs to come to CSE. All the tools, all the equipment. December 15th, your board voted you should return all the stuff and quit pretending it belongs to GodQuest, and you ignored them. If CSE pressed this issue via the legal system, Eric would most likely go to prison. We don't need the stuff as badly as he needs to return it to make things right. It's not that I need another screwdriver. How many do we have out here? Doesn't matter. You stole it, son. Return it. And then you can say, Dad, can I please borrow a screwdriver? No, son. We will give you one. But you better get off that high horse, get that proud attitude fixed, and humble yourself, son. You're a thief. I've been told by Eric and now my brother Ross that I got to make the public apology if I want to have fellowship and see my grandkids. He's holding my grandkids hostage until I apologize, because he's not going to bring them up here. Okay. Unless I hear differently, I'm going to post this on YouTube, and I waited 5 years, son. Here we go. I think it's going to backfire and harm your ministry beyond repair. I hate that. If you would admit you overstepped your authority and return the stuff, we could fix all this and we wouldn't have to make all this public. So, folks, we're going back to Bible study, 1 Corinthians. I've spilled. If you have any questions about what happened, if you think Eric did the right thing, call me. Why don't some of you Christians that are watching this say, let's get together and let's have a Christian council and let's call them both in. I'll spill the beans. I have nothing to hide. Try to get Eric to come. He won't come. And I feel terrible. Son, return the stuff. Give me a call. Say, Dad, can we talk? I'm sorry. I stole your stuff. Hey, Dad, how can we make it right? And we will bend over backwards to make it right. If you can't make it and lose your house and can't afford to live there, we will give you a place up here. Bring the family. You can.
Yes, of course, Hovind will bend over backwards to help it. Highly unlikely. I think it's more likely that Hovind wants everything back because he's very annoyed that that the government could have taken it if Eric hadn't acted in the way he did. It's passive aggressive the whole way through. Hovind is saying, oh, we're going to make up, and then he issues threats. It's a very interesting recording. He demands Eric return his underwear and Ickestodes, almost laughable, talks about his brother criticizing him. All Eric's wrongdoing, of course, never Kent, compares himself to the fugitive, complains about things being recorded. Hovind is the ultimate recorder of things, and if it wasn't Hovind, then his tech guy installed listening devices around DAL. So to me, it seems that Eric purchased the properties off the government when Kent forfeited them. It was a way of keeping them in the family. He may have gone and bought a few other properties as well, but he had to pay the balance owing on them. Some people might say, isn't it wonderful when a grifter gets in turn grifted by none other than the son he mistreated and beat severely when he was scared at the dentist. Poetic justice. And as for his legal advice, oh, yes, pretty bogus if you ask me. Okay, comment in the comments.